Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready to explore the architectural wonders of New York City? We're about to take a deep dive into the history of NYC architecture.
And it's a fascinating history. Buildings tell stories, They reflect the aspirations, the innovations, the dreams of the people who built them.
I love that. So no blueprints or hard hats required for this journey. Let's just take a trip back in time, shall we? Imagine, if you will, the 17th century New Amsterdam as it once was.
Ah, New Amsterdam. Cobblestone streets, those charming brick houses. And you can't forget the Dutch influence. Still visible today, in fact.
Oh, absolutely. You mean those distinctive roofs? What are they called again?
Gambrel roofs. You'll see them in some of the older neighborhoods, especially in places like Brooklyn Heights. That double slope is a real giveaway.
Yeah, they kind of remind me of a barn roof in a way.
That's a great comparison. And it makes sense if you think about it. That double slope wasn't just for looks. It actually provided extra storage space in the attics, which was super practical back then, especially in a rapidly growing city.
It's amazing how a simple roofline can tell us so much, isn't it? About the needs and priorities of a different time. It's like stepping back in time.
Absolutely. Those subtle details, they offer a glimpse into the past and serve as a reminder that New York's architectural story is one of layers upon layers of history and innovation.
But speaking of innovation, we can't stay in the 17th century forever. What about skyscrapers? They're kind of a big deal in New York.
Oh, absolutely. What would the New York skyline be without them? They're iconic. Right. But they didn't just magically appear. The rise of the skyscraper is really a story of necessity meeting ingenuity. Think about the late 19th century. The Industrial Revolution, a massive population boom, and space in the city becoming incredibly limited.
So what did they do? Start building up?
Exactly. But building upwards presented its own set of challenges. Before steel became the go-to material, they experimented with cast iron. And as you can imagine, it had its drawbacks.
Yeah, the Equitable Life building comes to mind. It was considered a skyscraper when it was built in 1870, but it was also a bit of a behemoth, wasn't it?
It really was. While cast iron allowed for height, those thick walls ate up valuable space. And aesthetically, well, let's just say it wasn't exactly graceful. The limitations of cast iron were becoming very clear.
So that's where steel frame construction comes in, the game changer.
You got it. Steel allowed for taller, lighter, and, dare I say, much more elegant structures.
And that leads us to arguably one of the most recognizable buildings in the world, the Flatiron Building. That triangular shape is forever burned into my brain.
As it should be. Completed in 1902, the Flatiron Building was a symbol of New York's ambition and this new era of skyscraper construction. Its unique shape, by the way, wasn't just about aesthetics. It was a clever way to maximize space on that awkwardly shaped lot. It was revolutionary for its time.
It's amazing how a single building can capture the spirit of a city and an entire architectural movement,
It really is.
Yeah.
But while skyscrapers might dominate the skyline, they're only part of the story, right? New York City is a melting pot of architectural styles, each with its own tale to tell.
It really is. There's so much variety. It's like the whole city's a walk-through museum. And speaking of museums, or at least places that feel like they should be museums, Grand Central Terminal.
Oh, absolutely. Now that is a building with presence.
I mean, every time I walk in there, I'm just blown away. Those soaring ceilings, all that marble. It's breathtaking.
Grand Central Terminal is a perfect example of Beaux-Arts architecture at its finest. And it was designed to evoke that sense of awe and grandeur.
To be awestruck by a train station. Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Well, think about it. At the turn of the 20th century, New York City was really coming into its own as a global power, right?
Right.
Beaux-Arts architecture, with its roots in classical Greece and Rome, was all about projecting power, permanence, cultural sophistication. Those grand buildings were like a statement to the world.
So it's like they were saying, hey, world, take us seriously. We've arrived.
Exactly. And they used architecture to do it. But of course, architectural tastes change, don't they? Fast forward a couple of decades, and you've got the sleek lines and futuristic vibe of Art Deco taking center stage.
Yeah, the Chrysler Building, for example. Now that's Art Deco at its finest. That spire piercing the sky is just, wow, pure ambition.
And don't forget the Empire State Building, another Art Deco icon.
They're both just so striking.
Art Deco was all about embracing the machine age, streamlined, elegant, optimistic. It really reflects the energy and the technological advancements of the 1920s, that sense of progress and possibility.
It's amazing how those architectural choices, the styles, the materials, they reflect such distinct cultural shifts. I mean, we went from the classical grandeur of Beaux-Arts to the sleek optimism of Art Deco in just a matter of decades. It's like the city's personality is reflected in its buildings.
Precisely. And that evolution continues. By the mid-20th century, you see a move towards a more minimalist aesthetic with the international style.
Oh, right, the international style.
The Seagram building is a perfect example of that.
Yeah, the Seagram building, it's so different from the ornate styles that came before it.
Absolutely. The Seagram building, completed in 1958, was a deliberate departure from all of that. Clean lines, open spaces, a focus on function over ornamentation. It's all about honesty in materials, and structural clarity, a reflection of the modernist ideals of the time.
From grandeur to minimalism. What a journey. But New York's architectural story doesn't end there, does it? I have a feeling things get a little more unpredictable, maybe.
You could say that. Just when you thought you had a handle on New York's architectural journey, postmodernism enters the scene.
Postmodernism, oh boy.
And it's a whole new ballgame.
Okay, I'm ready. Let's unpack postmodernism. What's the deal with that?
Well, think of it as architecture with a sense of humor, a playful challenge to the conventions of modernism.
Architecture with a sense of humor. Okay, you're gonna have to explain that one. Give me some examples. What buildings are we talking about here?
We'll take Trump Tower, for instance.
Oh, okay, yeah. I see where you're going with this.
Is bold, right?
Yeah.
With that geometric design and that signature gold facade.
It definitely makes a statement, that's for sure. Some people love it, some people not so much.
Exactly. And that's kind of the point with postmodernism. It was all about challenging those minimalist ideals, reintroducing ornamentation, playing with historical references, and embracing a more eclectic approach.
So instead of sticking to one strict style, it's more about mixing and matching, almost like a collage.
You got it. It's
Yeah.
about being playful, unexpected, even a little ironic at times. Think about the Sony Plaza with that iconic Chippendale-style top, for example. You get this playful nod to traditional design, but on a modern skyscraper.
Right. It's like they took something classic and gave it a modern twist. It's fascinating how these buildings reflect the spirit of their times, From the Dutch gables of New Amsterdam to the steel and glass giants of today, we've seen Beaux-Arts grandeur, Art Deco sleekness, and the minimalist lines of the international style. And then, boom, postmodernism shakes things up.
It's quite a journey. But that's what's so exciting about architecture. It's a reflection of who we are, what we value, and where we're headed.
So true. Speaking of headed, where are we headed, architecturally speaking? What does the future hold for New York City's skyline? I mean, what are we going to be talking about in another 100 years?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? If we look at something like One World Trade Center, though, it gives us some clues. It's not just about height and design. It's also about making a statement about renewal, resilience, responsibility.
Right. One World Trade Center is more than just a building. It's a symbol.
Exactly. And I think we'll see more of that in the future. Buildings that are not only aesthetically striking, but also environmentally conscious, technologically advanced, and designed with a sense of social responsibility.
So we're talking green roofs, vertical gardens, buildings that generate their own energy, things like that.
Absolutely. Architects are already exploring all sorts of innovative ways to create buildings that are energy efficient, that use sustainable materials, that can even adapt to changing environmental conditions.
Wow, it's like something out of a sci-fi movie, but it's happening right now. I'm picturing a city filled with buildings that not only touch the sky, but also blend seamlessly with nature.
Yep.
And why not? The possibilities are endless when we start to think about architecture in a holistic way, considering not just the building itself, but also its impact on the environment and the people who live and work in and around it. It's an exciting time to be an architect, that's for sure, and an exciting time to be living in a city like New York, where innovation is always on display.
It really is. Well, I have to say, I'm leaving this conversation with a whole new appreciation for every skyscraper, brownstone, and everything in between. To our listeners, next time you're walking through New York City, or any city for that matter, take a moment to really look at the buildings around you. Look up, look down, look closely at the details. You might be surprised by what those structures reveal, not just about architecture, but about history, culture, and the human spirit itself. Until next time, keep exploring and keep those imaginations firing.